My name is Breaux. I'm an artist, designer, and right now we're at my studio in West Washington Park. And one of the main missions I've kind of been working with ideas is just challenging how we dream and how we imagine. The main project I worked on for the residency was the newsstand. The goal of it was to connect people with one another to an immediate community. Being from the South Side, what I noticed from when I was younger, and then the stories that I hear about the South Side, my mother's experiences, my uncle's experiences, is that the community was a lot more connected at a certain point in time. And with things that happened in the 80s or throughout time, that connectivity has separated a lot of people, moved to the suburbs, moved away from the inner city because of problems that were going on. I think we have to be aware of how, with the convenience that we demand in the world of technology, there's a compromise. And some of those things that we don't get a chance to do is connect with the people immediately around us. You used to have to visit the newsstand to be informed about what was going on in the world. Now, the world comes to you in your device. What conversation is really being had about the immediate community is sort of the question. And then the conversation that is had is through the media's lens, and whose narrative is that? Who's telling that story? The physical newsstand is something that I collaborated with the Design Apprenticeship Program to help design and build. Very early on, I began to speak to Gabe and speak to folks here at the Art Incubator about what I was trying to do since we had a wood shop. And one of the ideas they came up with was working on it with the students. And I thought it'd be a good way to be involved during my residency. And I learned a lot from the process as well, working with teens, designing with a group of people on building a physical thing. I'm not an architect, I'm doing a bunch of that, you know? It was great to have all those experiences kind of in one. The phone is using this nostalgic medium to tell a story and to inform people about things that might be going on in their immediate environment. And when you interact with them, when you pick up the phones and you listen, they give you a fact or statistic about mental illness in America. They give you somebody's personal story. You hear a poem, or you get a definition of a mental illness given by a mental health care clinician. So the idea was that to add a little bit more context and information and understanding around what mental health is, create a greater sense of empathy, and you actually hear somebody speak about their experience. Writing things off as crazy or writing people off as delusional gets a little bit harder. We invited a bunch of clinicians here to the incubator, and I presented the idea of the newsstand, and I gave them the option at the end of the presentation to record. Sort of my way of connecting to the community at U of C too. So I was really trying to just do an open call for people who really are passionate about and wanted to speak about their particular experiences to be able to share with other people. I did work on some other paintings that were in this group show. Those works had to do with identity, challenges in the environment where I'm coming from. So the cactus piece speaks to food deserts on the south side of Chicago, and the cactus being the subject, the stand-in for it, like an individual, and trying to have that conversation using other aspects of nature that we all relate to, that have attributes in which we all relate to, right? And the other piece was a lot about identity and belonging and uplifting aspects of the identity, whether it was grooming devices, or whether it's house plants, or whether it's just love for self, personal features, just loving self. A different type of narrative to what is the South Side and what are these places that we come from. The works behind me were created for the newsstand. These works speak to the proximity to gang violence in Chicago and growing up on the south side of Chicago, and trying to use these familiar icons and this familiar format, which is the sign painting, to talk about my experience coming up in Chicago. You know, I saw those sign paintings, or those window signs at grocery stores. And at the same time, I saw gang signs sprayed on the wall next to them. They've always been in conversation in my mind. Also this idea that these other alternative lifestyles were also being sold, along with other things that were being sold on the south side of Chicago. So I kind of wanted to juxtapose those and bring those together, add more context to gang culture and gang activity in Chicago. I often see it viewed only through one lens, and it's dehumanized, and you don't hear much about those individuals' stories. From the beginning of the residency to now, my goal was to find time, a way to focus on the work. And I wanted to work through some things in the paintings while I was wanting to be in more conversation with the community, and all of those things happened. I resolved some of the work that I had done in the past that I really wanted to continue to flesh out. I think that's a challenge a lot of times with artists, having time or making time to experiment and being with the work. It gave me time to paint. The experience with the community here has been pretty good, especially with the DAP students. I think the staff, I've really connected with the most. Everyone is very supportive, just really helpful. Harold, of course, he's here all the time. Me and Harold hang out all the time because I'm always here painting. I'm gonna really miss it. I'm gonna miss being here. I don't know what I'm gonna do next. I don't know where I'm gonna go. I think the artist serves the purpose of inspiring people. Whatever we do, we want to contribute to people in some way. And I think inspiring people is one of the biggest gifts you can kind of give. So I hope it provides that to some folks. Having the audacity to inform people about my perspective. Just for them to question what's going on, to provoke more questioning. Excavating my experience in Chicago, using that information or that insight to create these experiences.